and uh, associate professor doctor from Kırıkkale University, Turkey. So Elif, I will not take much time from you. Without further ado, I give the floor to you. Your sound is off.
I would like to welcome you all again to European Writing Centers Week, our panel about writing centers, setting up and expanding writing centers. We are the European Writing Centers Association, and Lawrence is right now our president, and we are trying to coordinate and organize conferences and workshops and online events in order to reach the community of writing centers and writing academicians and so on. So I would like to continue our panel by introducing our panelists one by one. First of all, I would like to introduce Hacer Hande Uysal from Hacettepe University. She's a professor of English language teaching in Hacettepe University in Turkey, in Ankara. She received her MA in English education and PhD in foreign language and ESL education from the University of Iowa, with minors in teaching writing and second language writing, respectively. Her main research interests are second language writing, contrastive rhetoric, corpus linguistics, and language teacher education. She served as the founding editor of the Journal of Language Teaching and Learning for 5 years and established the English Academic Writing and Research Center at Gazi University and directed it for 3 years. One of our other panelists is Julian Strohschein. I hope I said it correctly. She coordinates the Writing Center at HWR Berlin School of Economics and Law, together with Dorothea Rabe. She coaches the writing processes of PhD candidates and researchers on personal development and learning experiences within writing processes using the metaphor of sovereignty. And our third panelist, Franziska Liebetans, directed the Writing Center of the European University of Viadrina in Frankfurt-Oder, Germany, from 2011 to 2020. Since 2021, she is directing, together with Anya Voigt, the Viadrina Center of Teaching and Learning. She is vice chair of the European Writing Center Association and founded, together with her colleagues, the Journal for Schreibwissenschaft. Lawrence Cleary, our fourth panelist, he has a BA in English from Illinois State University, USA, and an MA in English language teaching from University of Limerick, Ireland. He is the director of the Regional Writing Center at University of Limerick. He is current chair of the European Writing Centers Association and at-large board member of the International Writing Centers Association. Right, so I would like to start with our first speaker. First, let's give the floor to our EWCA president, Lawrence. Would you like to start first? We have too many ladies,
sure.
So we are going to be giving the floor.
Hey, listen, I could be one of the ladies. Not a problem.
Okay.
Dress me up, I'll go anywhere. So yeah, no, I didn't put together any kind of a PowerPoint or anything like that. I did attach a Microsoft Word page that kind of outlines what I wanted to present in the 5 minutes that are available to me. I start out by just making reference to a publication that we put together in 2009, which it was called Responding to Writing Development Needs of Higher Education Students, a case study, and this was in the ACE journal. It's the All Ireland Society for Higher Education journal. here in Ireland. And I provide a link to it if you want to read it. If you don't, that's fine too. But it's broken down into kind of two parts. One was just making the case for why there should be any kind of writing provision at all. And the other one was, and so this is something that we did. And the other part was surveying the people that are impacted by any kind of approach to writing provision. And then there's also a presentation in that article on the international responses to writing needs in higher education. And finally, there was our justification for choosing a writing center over other types of possible ways that we could have responded to the needs of writers in University of Limerick. And so just in terms of why writing matters, we covered why research, what research suggested in terms of the importance of communication, that it's a major factor in upward professional mobility. And we presented studies that indicated that this was the case. So we could make the case to the upper administration and to the higher education authority that, people who are good communicators, and we're talking about people who are good communicators on the level of interpersonal communication, presentational communication, and also written communication, tend to move upward in their field. And the people who don't do that, and we had a speaker here from Áthneas Illumina, Russell Áthneas Illumina, he was the CEO down on the estuary of the Shannon estuary. And he was saying that people who are in his business who don't learn to communicate well never leave Limerick. Basically, that's it for them. They're not going to be traveling. They're not going to be representing the company elsewhere in the world. And the people who do work on their communication skills actually travel. Also, we looked at the research on the role of written, presentational, interpersonal communication and government findings on future skills needs. There were quite a few studies out there, OECD studies and other national and EU-wide studies on the importance of communication to the future, to the needs of future industries. We also looked at research on the relationship between writing and thinking and writing and learning, and also thoughts on the goals of higher education, in terms of what it was for, not only to prepare graduates for the workplace, but for participation in the democratic process, learning how to make a case, learning how to convey oneself as a credible authority on the subject of debate, whatever is being debated. And then in terms of surveying those impacted, Ida, my colleague at the time, had in 2005 did a survey of teachers across the campus to find out what their thoughts on what was needed in order to improve the work that was being submitted by students. And then in 2006 did a survey of students in terms of what they would like to see in the way of writing provision. And we looked at, we asked them about their perceived importance of writing, how they perceived writing and its importance. Also on their difficulties in writing. We asked them questions about level of support currently offered and the need for writing support, the form that it should take. And one of the things that we did discover, I think, was that most students wanted actually to have writing embedded into the program, but that would be a major effort to start from scratch. That's something that we'd have to slowly encourage. Our concern was mostly to have some sort of a uniform approach to writing across the campus. And so that's what we pursued through a writing center. And again, we looked at international responses to writing needs in higher education. What did other people do? And that would be a justification for doing something similar in our case. And then choosing an appropriate means of responding to needs of all concerned. And all the people that are concerned are the EU and what they think people need in terms of what kinds of skills they need in order to participate in whatever kind of economy they see as emerging. And then, of course, the state, which usually follows close on the heel of the EU, and what they think is of necessary importance. And at the time, Ireland was trying to move into a knowledge economy, and I would assume they still are to some extent. And then also the Higher Education Authority, which takes their cue from the state. In every institution in Ireland, there is some representative from the Dáil, from the major parties in power. And then, of course, the institution itself, which in addition to trying to accomplish the needs of the state, is also has its own agenda and its own strategic, plan for the next 5 years. And so one of our goals was to make sure that they understood that, we could achieve these goals for them, or we could offer something that would help achieve those goals. We also did a business plan, and we started out with 250,000 from the state on a special, it was called strategic innovation funding. And we applied for that, and we received 250,000 for 2.5 years. And our goal was to create a writing center that the university would feel would be of worth, something that they would like to continue funding themselves. And so now we're top funded. And so we had a business plan in order to achieve that at the end of 2.5 years. We had a 3 to 5 year plan. I think we started with a 5-year plan and narrowed it down to a 3-year plan. And basically what was involved is we announced our achievements over the last 2.5 years. We projected what kinds of things we could do in the years that followed, our future plans and our visions. We also stated our contribution to the institution and how we contributed to the state's competitive advantage. We also wrote down we produced a market analysis, and this was our case for developing student writing, why we would do it, and how that would facilitate further contribution. We submitted a financial plan, which included key initiatives for the next 3 years, the cost of tutor support, the cost of administrative support, operating costs, and the need for space, our spatial needs, what we needed in terms of space. And then we also had included financial projections, and these would be needs going forward and possibilities for us generating income, which we did. We did things outside the university and charged funding, charged fees for those things that we did, including training the trainers. At the time, we were the only writing center in Ireland, academic writing center, and now there's like 13 or 14 of them. But at the time, we were, as they opened up, they were looking for help, and we would go there and we would train trainers. But also we had other contacts, like I know one time Ida went to IBM, IBM wanted some information, that kind of thing. And so we made recommendations. We also had recommendations from an external evaluator. We had invited, oh God, her name just went out of my head, Terry Zawacki, from George Mason University to come and evaluate our program. And she wrote a long report, which we included in our business plan as an indication of, how we were doing and also how we could do more. And so that was basically what established us here. Of course, sustainability is an ongoing issue. And now we are 2007, so 17 and 15, 16 years old, something like that. And so we've been here for a while, and hopefully we'll be here for a while longer. Okay, that's me.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for this very, short but very full introduction, very comprehensive introduction. I took some notes, and I will go back to my notes when everybody makes their presentation. I have noted down some important, aspects that I found interesting. I hope I can ask you about those when other people have presented. So I would like to go with the order in my biodata order now. So I would like to introduce next Hande Hocam from Hacettepe University. Yeah. And you are muted. Would you like to share your screen?
I'm trying, but it says that you are like you don't allow me to share.
Yeah, so I think Sona can allow you to share,
Okay.
right?
Uh-huh. Can you see it?
Yes. Mhm.
Mm. Okay. So I will just tell you a story of the establishment of the Gazi University Academic Writing Center, a short story. Um, okay, let me see. Yeah. Okay, this writing center was a little unique because we started it both as a teaching and research center. And we started with a status of research and application center, which is based on a little bit of a stronger basis when compared to other writing centers in Turkey. Because, you know, in Turkey, I mean, everything can change in a minute. So when the administration changes, everything changes. So I wanted this writing center to continue after me and after all the present administration. So the strong legal basis was very important. So we took the permission from Higher Education Council, first the University Senate, and then, I mean, it went through a lot of processes. It lasted long, but I think it's worth the effort. In the center, we focused on not student writing, but to publishing papers, and we helped mostly the academic staff. And that's the reason maybe we were able to convince people that this writing center was important, because most people were struggling with the publishing process, and they were being rejected by the international journals. So this was a very big need in that university, and it was a Turkish medium university, and most academicians had problems with publishing. Okay, so while starting, this was my vision, actually, the writing center, the management. I wanted to start with a needs analysis. So we sent a survey to all the staff, academic staff, and asked their needs. And then we planned everything according to this needs analysis survey, and also looked at the literature about writing centers, and also second language writing theories and approaches and everything. The legal status, as I mentioned, was very important, but also funding was important. And without having any money, I mean, you cannot proceed. So we also applied for a project and got the funding, and it was a project, it's a BOP project. It's just a university-based project, but funded by the government. Actually, it's an interesting project. Infrastructure, BOP infrastructure project, and I learned that the budget is limitless in that project, so you can write everything. So we wrote like a computer, 2 computers on a desk, kind of. I mean, a lot of budget. So we also built the office and everything. We had a meeting room, I mean, projectors for teacher training. We had a kitchen. I mean, we had everything. So we were really lucky to get that funding. So the next thing was finding a place, and we at that time a bank just moved from the university, so we wanted that place, and it was a very nice place, so we moved to that building. So okay, after this we also, I think teacher training is the next step, very important step. So we started teacher training sessions before opening our writing center. So every day, every week on Wednesdays, we started a meeting with the tutors, and a training started. Also, I will explain how this training went on. Okay, and then after the tutoring started, we again continued this education through workshops, seminars, and continued support. And as Lawrence also said, communications with the administration is very important and continuous. If you cannot communicate, you cannot continue. This is the most, I mean, this is just an introduction of how I vision a writing center and the importance. Okay, so while establishing the three most important conditions were met, the physical environment, the needs analysis, and the staff, choosing the staff, appointing them, and then tutoring, educating them. So as I said, the physical condition is, here is a picture how we started. And this was the building that we got. And this is the last look. So we even got some really nice pictures and everything. So, okay. After that, as I said, the scientific approach is very important. I mean, the surveys, the literature review, and also we interviewed with other writing center directors, both international and national, to get their opinions. We wanted them to share their experiences. We learned from their experiences while planning. Okay, we started the writing center. I mean, most of the things are similar in all writing centers, so I'm just skipping those. I mean, one-on-one training and helping them improve their writing, what kind of things we focused. So, okay, and the tutor training, we had two different sections in that training. First of all, we took an approach to analyze the text, published text. And with the overhead projector, we were just looking at those texts and we were just discussing how they were written. And then we were also looking at the sample texts that were written by the tutees. So comparing what was missing, and we were just asking, what kind of feedback would you give to that article? And of course, these were coming from different fields, like from medicine, from engineering, from social sciences. That was also a challenge, but we were looking at all kinds of texts and trying to get familiarized with their writing, the organization. We were trying to discuss, trying to understand what kind of approach we can follow. And after those training sessions, okay, yeah, this is just how we proceeded. The needs of the students, the needs of the teachers, literature. I talked about that. I also tutored the tutees myself to understand the process, what's going on, so that I can help the tutors better. So we try to synthesize what we learned from the literature and what we're facing. So this tutor training session started before we opened the writing centers, but they continued after we start tutoring. So we collected the samples, and we also created a corpus of this raw materials before the publishing process. So we got their permissions that because we wanted to have some, research database for some to understand their writing problems, for example. So these training sessions went on, and it was very collaborative, and also an ongoing support in the writing center, both by me and also the tutors were collaborating with each other. We were also giving seminars to all faculty members, and we were also talking with them. I mean, trying to understand their needs and to improve our center. And at the end of each session, we were giving them a survey, a satisfaction survey, to understand, I mean, how satisfied they were and what we can do to improve our sessions. So they were filling in that survey. So that was another data that we got. Okay. Yeah, we try to be visible. And because people didn't even know that there was a center and giving a free service. So we sent brochures and flyers to all faculty. We created a web page, seminars, webinars, workshops, and everything. Then we didn't have any time. I mean, just from morning till night. I mean, we were having these appointments, so we were really busy because everybody liked it. Yeah, as I said, we published a lot of things from this writing center. The first one was based on our academic needs analysis questionnaire. And then we created this corpus, and we're still analyzing. We just finished analyzing the problems of, I mean, Turkish scholars in terms of grammatical, syntactic structures, but we will also look at those in terms of lexical problems and other things later on. Yeah, the satisfaction questionnaire. So the problems that we had in terms of managing and sustainability, even though we tried really hard to have a strong basis legally, the administration changed and all my staff was scattered and they moved to other cities, to other universities. So we got our data with us, but I also changed my university. I had to. So this writing center story, unfortunately, it ended at a point, but it's still, I mean, this writing center is still there. It's providing service, but I'm not sure about the research part, but they're giving this tutoring services. Yeah, I mean, that's the end of, I think, this story. So, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Hande Hocam. It was very interesting to hear about your story. I think your colleagues are continuing the writing center at Gazi University still. And
some of them are, but for example, we had a lot of research assistants, but all of them are not there. So the research point was we're still trying to work on the data, but we're all in different cities, in different.
Oh yeah,
really
I see.
Difficult.
I see.
But we will, and because we have a great data, this corpus, and we should analyze them. I mean, we should go on.
Maybe we can get in contact with the new staff there in the
maybe
future
we can
meetings.
even do some comparative studies and get some similar data from other writing centers and see, I mean, what's different. A lot of things can be done, but I mean, you know, the problems in Turkish universities, so unfortunately, good intentions are not so much rewarded.
Thank you so much for your efforts. I would like to continue with our next presenter. And as I said before, after the presentations are over, we will have a discussion and we will also welcome questions from the audience. So I would like to continue with Julian Strohschein from Berlin School of Economics and Law for her presentation. Hande Hocam, could you stop screen sharing, please? Okay, Julian, the floor is yours. Do you want to share something?
Yes, I'm trying. It doesn't work yet. Let's Still doesn't work. Yes, now
Yeah.
it
Okay.
works.
Mhm.
Hope I chose the right one. Can you see it?
Yeah, genau.
Okay, Great. Well, I can't see you as much as I would like, but that's okay. Now I can see you. Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting us. My name is Juliane Strohschein from HWR Berlin. And together with Dorothee Raab, who's also here today, we coordinate the Writing Center. Yeah, and that's what you see. We had a photo shooting. Dorothee organized a really nice photo shooting just recently. So this is our new nice image for the Writing Center. Can't move the pictures. Now, okay. Here's some numbers so that you get an idea what's our audience that we play to. HWR Berlin has almost 12,000 students, more than 200 professors, 800 lecturers, which are mostly freelancers, so not paid, like, well, you know, more than 300 staff members and 80 PhD students. Altogether, there are 5 departments. The 2 biggest ones, which we have the most work to do with, is on the one side business and economics, and on the other side public administration. And that's interesting because those 2 work quite differently, how they write or not write, and teach write and not teach writing in their disciplines. Next. Altogether, there's 24 different bachelor degrees at HWR and 19 master degrees. Now about our setup, we are a 3-year project. So someone else, namely the vice president and the head of the language center, did the work, and together with also other, like the student services and so on. So there was a lot of support, and they applied for project money for 3 years, which pays Dorothee and me. So there's 2 writing experts, the 2 of us, and we each have a 50% part-time. And until the end of this September 24. So we started in July and October 21. So it's like we're in the middle now of this 3-year project. And it already looks quite good. We can't talk so much about expanding because we're still before the point of, okay, you have jobs, you can stay and you can really plan long-term, but it looks quite good. I mean, for the moment, it's a really good prospect. I also have extra 10% to play for PhD students. For the Writing Center, we have 2 peer tutors with each 40 hours a month for peer counseling and being there in the writing space and so on and so on. Administratively, we are a part of the Language Center because we're not like an institution yet, we're a project, so we are attached to the Writing Center, to the Language Center. And the head of the Language Center is also the person we officially report to, and to the vice president of teaching and learning. And the main goal of the project and of our work is to support and facilitate writing skills of all the different student groups. And maybe you saw it in the first slide. It's a quite good mix of students compared to some German universities, or compared to how selective student body used to be. So that's quite nice, and that's our job, to really address all of them, languages, skill level, different disciplines, different learning styles. So, well, you get the idea. Mm-hmm. Now, we identified 5 points of intervention that we focus on. The first is we want every student to know that there's a writing center, because they don't. And they still don't. I mean, they should. We write them emails and all this. But anyway, so that's the first point of intervention. The second is that we have open access support for all students. I'll talk about that in a second. So everybody can get the information. Then we have writing courses and workshops that take place every semester, like 10 of them. Also, again, addressed at different topics and student groups and course levels. Then the fourth point is that we go within the discipline. We support teachers, we talk with teachers, we talk about their curriculum, about their course concepts, and that's a quite important aspect of our work. I'll also say more about that later. And the last one is organizing lectures and events and workshops in cooperation with other experts and institutions within our institution and also outside. This is also about visibility and so on and so on. I mean, you also mentioned that already. And we're active in writing research studies and publications. So it's a classic, we do work across the curriculum. What you see here is a screenshot of our Moodle course. You'll know Moodle, some kind of that online learning thing. And we have self-study materials, there's the courses in German and in English. So this is for students who just, need the information and need selected material that helps them right away, whenever. And then in the second row, you see we have counseling. Counseling can be one-on-one, in person, on phone, via email and video conference. So we really try to go everywhere. And we also have a slot every week. So they also can just come so that they don't have I don't feel like writing emails, so they can just come and drop in. We have writing times. We also have them within the discipline, but here it's a time every week within our writing space. It's a room that we have where students can go anytime to write. But there's also times when Dorothee, for example, is there to start and end the writing time. Okay, now within the discipline, I said already, cooperation with teachers is really essential. We try to establish and strengthen a systematic course of establishing writing skills throughout the curriculum. And yeah, we go into classes, we talk to teachers, we try to be an inspiring part of courses, like the regular courses within the study program. And we realized that really does make a big difference if we just say we're the writing center, come and we'll help you. I mean, we can, but they don't come necessarily that much. But if we go to their classes and their teachers are in cooperation with us and they see us interacting, that really does something to the effectiveness of what we do. And we see an impact on students' attitudes and skill. Now, last thing, the prospects. Well, we're a rather young project, but what we can see so far is it was really good that we were very welcomed. There was already, beforehand, there was a long history of writing courses. So everyone already had a good attitude and we just needed to build on that. Some key factors that we think are important is that we behave as a partner to everybody else at HWR, the professors, for example. We build professional relationships and have a strong ethic of cooperation. Of course, we motivate and inspire students to use writing as a tool for learning, thinking, developing their personality, if you ask me. But we also realize it's really important to motivate teachers because actually they're not so happy often with their teaching and all the kinds of pressures they're under. And if they are inspired after being with us, that seems to be rather important. And we didn't know that was so important. Yeah, and then the last thing, of course, keeping up with current issues right now is ChatGPT, because this might change a lot of things about teaching and learning and prüfen, exams. So this is what we do. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, we're both looking forward to discussing with you.
Thank you very much, Julian, for your presentation. It was very informative to know about a newly emerging, project as your writing center. And it's also interesting that you also had to touch upon something like digital developments like the GBT. So I think that's something which is going to be discussed in the future more, I guess. Maybe after the presentation, last presentation, we can ask you some questions about your experiences about that. Motivation, increasing motivation and giving inspiration. I think those are also very positive concepts. You said you noticed them in the process. So that's also something interesting. Thank you so much. Now I would like to give the floor to Francisca Libetans from Viadrina University as our last speaker, last but not least. Okay, Francisca, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really happy to talk to you, and I prepared a little presentation. And first, I like to show you where my university is. So as you can see, here's Germany, here's Berlin. So here we have Juliane Strohschein and Dorothee Rabe sitting at the HBR. And I'm sitting here at in Frankfurt-Oder at the European University Viadrina. So it's quite next to the Polish border. We can go over the bridge and we are in Poland. And so it's quite a special atmosphere. And just give another, oh, you have to switch. So yeah, this is our campus. As you can see, here's the river, here's the bridge, here's Germany, here's Poland, and more or less here's the Viadrina. So you see more of the city than of our university. And I started 2005 as one of the first peer writing consultants at a German university, and I worked for Katrin Görgenson. And she founded our writing center, I think it was 2007 as well. And she was quite young. I think she was in her beginning of the 30. I was in the beginning of my 20. And so we built up a really nice and vibrant writing center. And we hired tutors, we wrote books, we had conferences, we founded the Long Night Against Procrastination. So like every German newspaper were writing about this long night against procrastination. And the next year, other writing center joined us. And so suddenly it was in everybody's mouth talking about writing center. What is it? And what is a writing center at the university? And so I think this was like a really nice time in the beginning of 2010. More and more writing centers founded in Germany. We had the Gesellschaft für Schreibdidaktik und Schreibforschung, like a German association for writing didactic and writing research, was founded. And so a lot of stuff was going on, and it was quite exciting. And in 2011, my dear colleague Katrin Görgenson went to the US for 1 year, and she did a research. She wanted to find, she tried to find out why writing centers can be successful, and she asked, I think, 16 writing center directors who worked in a really well-established writing centers, and what was important to have like a institutional writing center. And she wrote a really huge book. So this is her title, Von der Innovation zur Institution. And I just like to point out some things she figured out, because it's like in a really, I make it really short. It's like a really big research. And she found out that more or less 7 strategic action areas are really important. And I think everybody of you noticed or talked about it already. So it is really important that a writing director and writing staff members, writing center staff members are really active in university teaching. So they give courses for students and for teachers. And and that they are visible, that they do research, or that their work is related to research. That's a really important key, that they have resources, that they have money, that, you know, they are somehow financed, that they have a professional network in their countries with other writing centers. There was, for example, European Writing Center Association, and so they always, you know, have this professional backup and always has a chance to look, okay, what is another writing center doing? What is the community doing? How can we share ideas and research and so on? And of course, the writing center team is a really important figure. So she also found out that most of I would say every writing center she went to worked in a collaborative way. So it was really important that everybody, you know, has been responsible for the writing center and had the chance to bring their idea into the writing center and somehow to form the writing center, and the peer tutor as well. So the student peer tutors as well. And she also found out that the training and development of peer tutors are really important, because they are like the next generation who take it over, and they are also the students are also the persons who are really, you know, next to university writing. They know best about teachers, they know best about student writing, and so to wrap it really up, really short up, so this was the most important strategical areas she found out. And what was interesting, because our writing center at the European University, Viatrina, was really vibrant and well known, and we had a lot of students. We got a lot of money, not from our university, always from the government or from other institution. So, but we haven't been top founded, like Lauren said, and as also we have been really famous in Germany, and so in 2020 we didn't have any money anymore, so it was more or less my part and the part of my colleague Anja Vogt. Katrin got another job as professor at university in Berlin, and somehow to, you know, to get a top founded, because we didn't have money for our university, I think for more than 10 years, 13, 14 years. And I said, okay, no, it's enough. We can't always ask, you know, other institution in the government for money. And so if we talk about institutionation, sorry, I think it's also really important to think about, okay, how can we, despite our good ideas, despite our research, despite our, I don't know, students who are coming to us, what can we do to get top founded? And we figured out that it was really important somehow to find a key into the university strategical file. So it's we figured out, okay, it's important to somehow form or somehow shape the university strategy. So we were able to write like really important papers for the university, and we were able to bring in that writing is necessary, that the kind of teaching and the way of learning is necessary, and we were invited to work together with the leadership of our university, and then the German government gave like amount of money to each university in Germany for creating a better learning and teaching environment. And so at our university we got a lot of money too, but like every department wanted to have the money to do their way of, you know, better teaching and supporting learning and writing. And so we had our department and us trying to get the money. And as you can imagine, as writing center people, more or less young women, against this really strong departments who are really, you know, like mostly really well established professors. And it was quite hard, but somehow we managed to do it due to this really important papers, and we had a support of our Vizepräsidentin für Lehre, of the Vice President for Teaching and Learning. And in the end, Corona was really important for us somehow, because our writing center and our managed to do all this work to make the university, somehow able to teach in a digital, to teach in a digital way. And so I think this was also like a coincidence what was really supportive for us to get the money, because we did a lot of courses for teachers and professors to teach them how to do digital teaching. We had like a really big, we opened up a really big, how do you say, like an online learning lab. And we had a lot of consultation with teachers, and we taught them how to, to use Zoom, to use everything what we are using now, and what is more or less easy for us to use now. But it wasn't that in the beginning of 2020. And yeah, so that's a bit of our story, and I hope you got some ideas or some pictures, and we can continue talking now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Franziska, for introducing us to your writing center. So I also visited the writing center at Viadrina. You had organized a conference for the EWCA. I cannot remember the year, but could you help me with that?
I think it was 2014.
14, yeah,
Yeah.
2014.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was surprised that this Frankfurt was not the Frankfurt. This was the other, right? But it was a really very nice conference and very good atmosphere there. And you focused very much on the funding. Maybe we can come to that later. You had to compete over the funding with established professors, I think. And what was your strategy? Maybe you can tell us about that in the end. But another factor you mentioned is institutionalization, I think, right? Am I right? So that's something which also helps the sustainability of the writing center, which Hande Hocam is also familiar with, like the institutionalization, finding a place, finding the right place in the university culture is very important. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Now I have a couple of questions that I have prepared, but you already answered some of them. But what we can do is I can ask the questions and the panelists could answer, or if you have an answer for the question, you can step in and give your answer, or I could call on you one by one, or you could volunteer to answer. Which one would you prefer? I don't know, but I would like to start. So the theme here is setting up and expanding the writing center. So the first question is about the impetus behind setting up a writing center in your institutions. What was the impetus behind it? And one extension of this question is, was the impetus the same for writing academicians, the writing people, and the administrators of the university? Did you have the same vision? Did you have the same perspective? Is my question clear? Right. So did you feel that you have the same vision for the writing center, for the reasons for setting up the writing center? Yes, Lawrence, please.
Okay, like at the University of Limerick, when I came here, I had come here as a mature student from the United States, finished the last year of my undergraduate program, and went into a master's in English language teaching program. And after I finished the English language teaching program, I was being approached to do workshops on writing. As an undergraduate at Illinois State, I had taken every writing class that I could take, including I was as an undergraduate, I was taking postgraduate classes because they ran out of classes for me. And I wanted to keep taking, and I was really interested in this. And unfortunately, I didn't get a degree in rhetoric and composition studies. I got a degree in English. But the biggest component of that was the writing program, modules and classes that I had taken. So when I was approached, I was looking at the way that people had structured their writing workshops. And I was sitting there thinking, this is not right. You know, this is not the way I would do it. In fact, even being approached to do writers' retreats and hearing the way that I was approached, like the way that they had conceptualized things was just totally different than the way that I would have looked at it. And so what I would do is I would start out with, that's not how I would do it. And that's the way I would start the conversation. And they would look at me puzzled and say, okay, well, how would you do it? And then I would start outlining the way that I would do the workshop. And one of the things that I noticed was that people really had no sense. Like, I know this phrase that people use, academic writing, the phrase that I would be using is writing in academic contexts, because not all writing is the same in university. And not only that, but people write a lot of different kinds of things in academic contexts. So, and then the writing that lecturers do is not the same as the writing as students do. And so I would use that phrase, but I would start out with recognizing that a lot of students didn't even realize that they were to make a case, that when you write in an academic context, you're engaging in conversations that already existed long before you got there, and you're weighing in. And this is something that it's a very investigative process, and that's why we research, right? We basically find out, what did people say before I got here, and what do I think of that, and where would I go with that? And so that would be the beginning of a workshop on writing in an academic context. But anyway, so yeah, I think that I'm trying to remember how I started this conversation, get refocused here. But yeah, I think that starting those workshops started getting noticed, and I started getting more and more requests to do them. And I was eventually getting all day Saturday workshops and things like that. It was great for me because I was broke and I needed the money. But the problem was that I was also working like 60 something hours a week, trying to do my regular job and these workshops. So I had mentioned to the head, she would have been the the language center director. She would have been the person who was leading on the language center. I mentioned to her that if we were in the US, you'd have a writing center. And so I think that must have been a bug in her head. She approached somebody who was the head of linguistics, and between the two of them, they applied for some money to find out what would it take to put together a writing center. They got 25 grand. And then at the same time, that the Dean of Teaching and Learning went to the state fund and secured that the 250,000. So we were pretty well situated money-wise. It was just a matter of setting it up from there. But just doing those workshops really kind of like spread the word, that it informed us how inconsistent people were in the way that they approached writing in academic context. And it also, it provided us with a justification for coming up with a more consistent, systematic way of going about this. And I think that that's how we kind of like started it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think your workshops kind of acted like a needs analysis for you as well in setting up the writing center. And also it made people realize, the administration realize, that we need something more organized, we need something more established. Yeah, I think that's you started with baby steps, I think, but I think that's the best way to start something bigger, right?
When we did our first symposium, the vice president of the university was invited to open the symposium, and he couldn't believe it when he came into the room. The audience was full of engineers, and he couldn't understand why engineers were here to listen to this symposium on writing. And it really opened his eyes, and I think that really helped. And also the president of the university at that time was a graduate of Yale. and Yale has writing centers. And so he was all for writing centers, and that was a big bonus for us. The next president that came after him, he was like, he had no idea. I don't think he was very interested at all. Presently, we have a president who is, I'm not sure where she is, from Germany. She's a German. She was definitely a humanities person, and she was all for the writing center. So we're lucky again, you know.
Okay, thank you very much, Lawrence.
Cheers.
And Francisca, you raised your hand first, so I would like to give the floor to you, and then Julian. And I wonder, 25 grand, in which currency was that?
That was in euro.
Euro. Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's very lucky. Yeah. Okay, then. Right, Francisca.
I think what is really interesting, because teachers somehow see, okay, students, have to improve their writing. And at my university, and probably I can speak for Germany, I don't know how it is in other countries, but teachers see, okay, the product is not that good. I would like to have the product, the text product, and so they feel somehow has to be done. And then there's like a writing center. It was not really that well known, and they somehow thought, okay, probably they can somehow fix it. But then they figured out, okay, they can't really fix it, not so fast like I want them to fix it. And I think what is really important, and what's happening now, even due to the ChatGPT thing, is that they understand that the product is not that important. The way to the product, to the text, is important, and that means like academic competencies are important. Future skills are important as well, and I think we have like a really big chance now to convince people and to enable them to understand what our work is about. And I think the idea of a writing center is more or less, we all have the same idea, but what people understand and what they want is, I think it's coming more together now. So I think it's a big chance. Yeah, thank you.
Francisca, like from the fixing place to some place where the process is important, and learning to think, teaching them how to approach the process, like Lawrence was also saying. Okay, so I'm happy that you have seen some improvement in that. Thank you. And Julianne, you were next. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the different visions the different players had, I think there was also a big portion of this fixing. So professors unhappy with student writing in term papers, for example, and we still have that professors are not so convinced about a writing center, and then like, oh yeah, the students that don't write so well, take care of them. So we have that definitely still, but we have, I think it's the vice president, because she's rather important and she's rather progressive. So she invited, for example, future skills, and she invited the discussion about ChatGPT, and she supported also the idea of a writing center, but she didn't know about writing centers is a thing. Like she and the head of the language department applied for Schreibwerkstatt, so a tool shed, like a workshop, but like a tool shed, like they wanted working happening. So that was the idea, and they didn't even know that there was writing center. So they got the right idea, but didn't know that, for example, Francisca and Katrin had that idea already 20 years ago. Yeah, and student services also play an important role, because they really get the suffering of the students. I think they were important too in saying, we need to do something. And then on the level of not administration, but like presidents and so on, in Germany, they get money if students don't quit. So that is important. Having students stay and writing or not writing is a crucial aspect. And I think in Germany, it's maybe even worse than generally in universities, that students, grow a panic and quit because of writing. And then, of course, there's Dorothy and me, and we have a vision of like, it's good for learning and personal development and so on and so on. So there's a quite broad rainbow of what people have in mind when they set up a writing center. But the good thing is we managed to reach out to all of them, and I think like one person was not in favor of giving us a continuation of, I don't know, many. So we got them.
So you got the majority's support to continue, right?
Yeah, well, there was like a meeting, academic senate, like when the top ranking people meet, and they all voted yes for giving us a continued institutionalized continuation. Except one person, it wasn't like they didn't like us, but they were just protesting something completely different. Well,
I see.
Off topic.
Right. Right. So Lawrence mentioned they made presentations, or they made their achievements known and their vision and their contribution. I think they also did something like that, like deliberately. Did you also do something like that at that meeting? Like, did you talk about your achievements, visions, contributions to the community of the university?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, we evaluated what the teachers who worked with us thought, and that was quite positive. And and we wrote a report. So we used the evaluation that was done and found a language to be convincing. Like we needed to be there to, because it's difficult, because often we would, we speak different languages, and Dorothee and I both come from a different study background. So, but we learned enough of HWR speak to convince them with arguments, like so and so many students are writing or have difficulties with writing, and so fact-based argumentative writing was yes.
Okay, thank you very much. With that perspective, I think it's very interesting and very important to know. Speaking the language, right? That can communicate your, what you mean clearly. What did you say? HWR speak, like HWR, right? The Berlin University speak. Okay, right. Thank you, Julian. And Hande Hocam, you have raised your hand as well, please.
Yeah, I agree with the other speakers. The most challenging part was that different visions that we have with others while establishing a writing center. In our case, the impetus was to increase the publishing rate and increasing the international publications. So they wanted to do that in the fastest and shortest way. And of course, what comes to your mind is automatically translating or just editing, not learning how to write. So because it's a painful and a long process and very painful, so everybody wants to avoid learning academic writing, and especially these academic staff, the faculty were feeling ashamed to come and fall into the student position again and attend these tutoring sessions. And as you saw in the pictures, I mean, we were on the ground floor and everybody could see who's inside. So we had to cover the windows because we didn't want the others to see that they are coming to the writing center. So it's kind of a shameful process. But I really struggled to convince the administration, especially the president of the university, that we had to teach these writing skills, not just translate, not instead of giving the fish, we need to teach them how to catch the fish. But I mean, a lot of meetings, a lot of presentations, and there's a Senate meetings, and I was being questioned. I mean, why? I mean, and I said that, I mean, this is my only condition. I mean, they should learn it, and we can do that if you give us a chance. but it was really painful. I mean, instead of editing, this is very easy. I mean, they just leave their paper and then you edit and then they come and take it. But instead of that, I mean, coming every week for months maybe and being a tutor. So that was the biggest challenge that we had. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And something different from maybe the European perspective is here that the academicians, one of the impetus points were to increase academicians' publishing rate. I don't know if you have as a goal in European institutions, we not only help or let's say try to teach students, undergraduates in Turkey, but academicians also request help, but not in every writing center in Turkey. But I think in Hande Hoca's case, for example, that was it's because of the also teaching philosophy in Turkish universities. When you start writing research papers, you really not necessarily have taken any writing courses. If you are in a department other than English, if you are from business department, for example, nobody taught you how to write a paper on business. You only consulted your PhD advisor, doctoral advisor. They taught you things and you read the model articles when you were researching and you saw what it looks like, but nobody has really taught you how to write academically, how to find a subject, how to research for it and stuff like that. And because of that, the Writing Center one of the goals of the Writing Centers in Turkey is to help people publish or to help them improve their publications. Thank you, Hande Hocam, for sharing that aspect. Lawrence, yes, please.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Hasser had said, I mean, we also had targets, and some of the targets of the university would have been increased publication from PhD students, also to encourage master's level people to go on to do PhDs. We had first year concerns where it was somebody else mentioned this about the idea that I think it was Julianne about people just disappearing after, the first or second year because of the writing that was involved. Mature students, because these would be adult learners, people who were coming in from industry, going into second careers or upskilling their careers or whatever. And this was a big concern. So these were targets and so forth. But one of the cases that we made right away was, and this was in order to avoid that issue of people coming to us and us fixing their texts, was that we were a learning center and that it was necessitated because we didn't want to develop texts. We wanted to develop writers. And the reason we wanted to develop writers was because these people were going to go on to do bigger things in their industries, whatever industry they were going into. And we made that case in our business plan, basically, and also in the application for the funding, that there was evidence that there was a need to develop writers so that people would be good communicators when they went into into industry, and that they would have strategies for improving themselves. It would be autonomous learners, etc. And so we never even encountered that issue of fixing anybody's text. It never, ever happened. We made it clear from day one that that was not what we were about. And I think it is something that's important if you're starting a writing center, is that you make the case that you're there to help people become better writers. And so that, when they left you, they had something to build on. And that would be even undergraduates. When I talk to undergraduates, I tell them, you have 4 years to get good enough at this so that when it comes time, if you decide you're going to do postgraduate work, people already know that you're capable of doing postgraduate work because you can write well. And that's something that I pitch right from day one. And I think they take it to heart, the ones who are interested. Other people are just like, I just want my degree and I want to go to work, whatever. And that's fine. That's their decision. But anyway, I'll shut up.
Thank you very much. I picked out a motto from what you said. You can write this on the wall of your writing center. We developed writers, not texts. You can write this in bold somewhere, right? I think that's a very good principle, and it's good that you made that clear from the beginning. Of course, that's in many institutions in Turkey. I think people don't want to open writing centers because of that risk of becoming a fixing center. So how to persuade the administrators that we are not that, we are trying to teach like knowledge management, maybe, if we can call it that way, or in the knowledge economy. You mentioned something like that, Lawrence, knowledge economy. That's becoming more and more important in today's world, and how to handle that knowledge, how to communicate in that culture in order to teach that. That should be the larger goal. Okay. Thanks to ChatGPT. What did you say? That was interesting. In the chat, Francisca says, thanks to ChatGPT, we need no more fixing. Right. And now we need programs to identify if it was written by a computer or a person. So we are at that stage right now. I have many questions, not many questions, but several questions here, which already have been discussed in between, I guess. And I would like to, for example, I wanted to ask about the institutional status, but we already talked about those and responsibilities and goals. We covered those within the other questions. And I would like to ask something about the challenges and the solutions you have found. Like, what are the most important challenges you are facing in your writing centers? And what are the solutions that you have devised in order to address those problems? That's my next question, if you would like to answer. Maybe Lawrence, would you like to start first, or?
Sure. I'll tell you, we're kind of confronting a big problem right now. We didn't realize that it was the state. We thought it was the university, but apparently we're the last to find out anything. But we had negotiated new contracts as educational developers. That was our new contract title. And it had a progression track, and it was very much aligned with the academic progression track. It was very similar in a lot of ways to the progression track of an academic. Back in 2017, all progression was suspended except for the academic progression. And then in 2018, their progression was suspended as well. And then suddenly the union kind of perked its head, and we were ready to go on strike in 2019, right before Christmas. And then the academics had their progression track returned, and suddenly everything went silent again. So it kind of tells you how much the value, how much you're valued by your own union. But we discovered that actually they basically told us that we will not get progression. We are anywhere close to being in an academic contract. And so this is demotivating. For 5 years now, we haven't had any way of progressing into the next level. So I'm an educational developer. Ida is a senior academic developer. So she's progressed right before they cut off the progression track. She progressed, and she had to fight like a dog to get it. And then Angelica, who's a technology kind of person for education, she was progressed to a senior, which is even a higher level. And they're all based on similar salary scales to academics. And so now that we've been cut off and pretty much told that only way we could have our progression restored is if on a national level, there was some sort of conversation between educational developers. And since we all have different unions, this is going to be very difficult. So this is a big demotivating kind of a thing. And it really does make you think twice about how much effort you want to give to a job that they won't, they're not going to pay you well. They're not going to progress you. There are no perks. You can't, we have research as part of our job description, but they're not providing any opportunities to do research. Basically, if you want to do research, it's at night or on weekends. There's no taking days off to go research. There's no research days. There's no sabbaticals. any of that stuff has all been suspended. So this is a big issue for us. And I think, other than that, I think that probably everything else, if all things be equal, I would say that we're on the same trajectory we've been on for years. Things wane, and things progress, and then things wane, and so forth. And I'd say if there's going to be a next big move, it's starting to spend more time with the faculty again, maybe doing WAC workshops with faculty to help them develop the language that they need to talk about writing to students in a way that students can get it. So that would be my next probably move. But the whole pay issue is really, we've been pretty much diminished. And you couldn't be more diminished than we have been by this whole move by the state. So that's a big issue for us,
Thank you very much. That's an important aspect also, the payment, also the, progression, getting, what you deserve as a result of all the academic research you have done and all the effort, and not finding time to do research outside of your responsibilities, and not being able to get a sabbatical. Of course, those are problems. I hope that they get resolved in your, case. Thank you, Lawrence. And Francisca, Julian, and Hocam all have things to say about this. So first, let's hear from Francisca.
And I think one challenge is, and for us all, I think we all face the challenge that we somehow have an idea of a writing center. For example, we produce better writers, not text, and we try to make people to understand it and to work with us. And at the same time, we have a lot of different needs. We have needs from the faculty, we have needs from the students, we have needs from the teachers, and we have to serve so many people at the same time. There's not a lot of staff, there's not a lot of money, not being paid to do research, to go to conference, and so on. So I would somehow say directing a writing center, or probably even working at a writing center, is not a job. It's like a Leidenschaft, we say in German. It's something you have to be really into, you have to be in love to, you have to have need a lot of patience. And I think that's really challenging for everybody. And it also can be frustrating if it's not honored, I think. And I think that's why our international community is so important, that we meet and, somehow celebrate us as well. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Francisca. And Julian, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of needs, and I'd say the biggest challenge is still that students, I mean, teachers mostly know there's a writing center, but students really often don't know that it's there. And the concept of a writing center, just a general notion, is often not there. So that's really something we tackle. And the other thing is that we offer, for example, writing time, writing space, writing counseling, and students don't show up. We know there's enough students who would need it and who would profit from it, but they don't show up. And we're not done solving those two, but two things that that work is, like Francisca said, we try to get to know the perspectives and the needs. And I think often we're, like Lauren said, it's about communication. So there's the students and there's the teachers, and they do not understand each other often. And so we come in as a third party and try to explain to each other where they misunderstand each other in terms of writing. And we go into classes, we show what we can do, and that really changes something. I mean, you can tell them what you want, but once I'm in a classroom of the professor and talk with them about what they want to achieve, that really changes something, because then they change from being the professor who gives a grade to a writer themselves who also has, their issues with writing.
Thank you very much. So visiting the classrooms of students helps, and communicating with the faculty helps. Thank you. And Hande Hocam, what would you like to add to that discussion?
I agree with all the speakers that we also had pay issues. I agree that writing centers are undervalued, unfortunately, within the university system. I mean, especially the tutors, they work so hard, but they're not respected enough. Another challenge that we had was collecting evidence that we are doing a good job. Okay, reporting and having solid evidence that, I mean, what we do really works. So you need to report to the authorities, and also you should convince all the other, people involved in the university that you're doing a great job. So do this advertisement, and also how to communicate your job to others is very important. That's why we needed to collect a lot of data through the satisfaction surveys or other things. We also collected their writing to show, I mean, if people ask, the improvement between drafts. And we also were planning to have a statistics, for example, how many of these articles that were published after their visit. Unfortunately, I mean, we could collect some data, but not the statistics. Still, we can, I mean, track the names, and we have the articles, we can do that. But I mean, these kinds of things are really important because people don't know that you are doing, I mean, this is a really critical job. I mean, maybe at the heart of the university, because without writing, without written communication, I mean, the academia cannot go forward. So more communication is necessary in that respect. So thank you.
Okay, the importance of academic communication, importance of collecting data, publishing it, making it well known. You are also approaching it from a researcher's perspective. Right, thank you very much for your contribution. I have last two questions, but I'm going to combine them together. And I know that we are running over our time, but after those questions, I would like to invite the audience to ask their questions if they want to. There are two questions I want to merge together. So our second theme was, first we talked about the setting up of the writing centers, and the second theme was how to expand them. Now, my last question is, if you would like to expand your writing center, how would you go about doing that? And lastly, something more, a more humanistic question, maybe, your experiences, an interesting story from your writing center that you would like to share. Maybe something interesting that happened among your students, with your students, and a memory you would like to share. Maybe we can finish with that. But the first part of the question is, how would you go about expanding the writing center? Do you think it's necessary? If it's necessary, how would you go about doing that? Right. And first, Julian, would you like to step in as the first person to answer that question? Because you are new, maybe you can think about that at the beginning.
Well, it's always easier to first listen to someone else and then have my own thoughts organized, but I'll try to improvise.
So I just took you by surprise.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Well, it's really new that we have this positive information about probably being able to continue if everything goes all right. So thinking about expansion seemed just like until yesterday, like a luxury that we didn't really have. But we did talk about it just today, and Dorothy said if really there's an increased demand of counseling, we would want to have another person join us. So actually, I don't really have a good answer about expanding. We're still too busy with being and getting known by everybody. And also with the changes coming, I might sometimes have the idea that maybe we are also going to shift towards a learning center, because we cooperate a lot with the e-learning center, and we don't have a higher education didactic center at HWR. So maybe that's also a gap we are stepping into. I think we're stepping into it anyway. an interesting story. I don't know. It's completely interesting. I worked at this HVF since 2016, and they told me we will never have a writing center. We will never have a job. They told me, and then by surprise, I got this email. Well, would you like to apply for this position? So maybe the interesting story is that things change quite quickly, and I think they start changing even quicker.
So people who say never should think again, right? So, okay, so I think first thing you mentioned was staff, increasing staff, and maybe combining your resources with the learning center. Okay, thank you. Francisca, did you raise your hand earlier?
No, I was just applauding.
Okay, right. So, what would you like to say about expansion, Francisca? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have indeed. I think for me it would be, or for our writing center, it would be more and more important. It is already very important, but I think it's even more important now to work closely together with faculty, because I think due to the possibility of ChatGPT, and I think it's not possible to have something which is going to prove if it's written by ChatGPT or not. It is really important that every teacher is including writing into their lessons, into their normal. Sorry, my phone is. That is really important that they just include writing intensive courses.
Yeah.
And that's my vision. And something funny, I think funny was really during our first night against long night against procrastination. We had opened the whole night until 8 o'clock in the morning, and we had 5 journalists sleeping in our writing center with like blankets and pillows, and that was something really nice. But this is more than 10 years ago. Now I'm already tired at 12 o'clock. So yeah,
it must have been a nice memory for them,
yes.
Sleeping at the writing center, spending the night there,
Yes.
right? What was the event called? Procrastination?
The long night against procrastination.
The long night against procrastination. That's very creative. Thank you very much. And Lawrence, would you like to comment on expansion? Do you think you still need to expand, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when we started, we decided to be a regional center, and that was probably what got us the big funding, was that we were not just a writing center for University of Limerick, we were also a writing center for the 2 IoTs, one of which was 60 kilometers away from us, IT Tralee, and then we also had the Limerick Institute of Technology and Mary Immaculate College, which is across town. Those two are both across town. But since then, I guess ways that we tried to expand was one of the things that we did, and I think it was kind of a mistake, partly because there was no way to staff it. There was no funding for it, but we did it anyway because we were kind of trying to, get ourselves embedded in the institution. So we offered to do modules on writing. And so we were doing, I still do a peer tutoring module that I offer across the campus to anybody who's interested in taking it. And for undergraduates, it's a prerequisite to tutoring in the Writing Center. So if an undergraduate wants to be a peer tutor in the Writing Center, they have to actually take that module and get a B1 or better. And they have to be good writers, and they have to have welcoming personalities. Those are the stipulations. Postgraduates, it's a little bit less demanding. I mean, I can hire a postgraduate through interviews, checking out their writing and so forth. But we did a lot of modules, and that really did help us in the sense that we really became very close with the engineers in the engineering department. I did 2 modules there, one which was a postgraduate module on advanced communication, and another one which was an undergraduate module, just introducing first-year engineers to writing as an engineer. But I also did things with the English department. I can't think of all the modules we used to do. I don't do any of them anymore. This just became too demanding. The student numbers went up and the staffing didn't go up. So I was like, I can't do both. I can't do this and that. But one of the other ways that we expanded was by making our resources available, barring, except for the peer tutors. Our resources are available to anybody on the planet that has internet access. They can go to our website and they can access the useful links, the workshop resources, etc. We do an annual essay writing competition for secondary school students, and that covers the whole country. We have 2 years that we're targeting. One is called transition year, which is a year that students take off to go and do something besides schoolwork. And another is the 5th year of their secondary school education. That would be equivalent to second year undergrad, second year high school and 3rd year high school students. Those are the people we're targeting. And we present them with a social issue that's relevant to them. And I know that because we have a co-op student who's about their age who drafts the prompt that they respond to. And it does involve some research, but it's not an academic paper, it's just an argumentative paper. We advertise that, and then we post, on our website. We do interviews with writers. All these things are video recorded and put onto our website. So the website becomes a big way of expanding out. But I think, like Franziska, I tried to do WI in 2013, 14, something like that. I became ill and I was out for a year. And while I was gone, I guess the idea was abandoned, and I wasn't going to fight City Hall. I'm now kind of looking at the idea of writing mentors. These would be students who have taken a module, done really well in the writing, and approaching them and paying them to spend time with the current students in that module. These would be students that already graduated from that module. Go in there and spend an hour a week with them, answer questions, and understand the Writing Center is we're not deductive. We don't tell people what to do. We want to make sure that what we're doing is exposing choices that are available to them and letting them make decisions as writers. And that's our job. So that would probably be the next way that I expand.
Okay, thank you. So the website, modules, and lastly, writing mentors from students, undergraduate students, right? Yeah, okay, that's also something that's very rewarding for the students, and they know each other well, like they are peers. So I think that's a very also good idea to do. Hande Hocam, and you didn't share a story with us, Lawrence, a story from your writing center. Does anybody bring pillows?
No, nobody brings pillows. I'm trying to think. There was one that had a funny story, but I couldn't remember it now. It went out of my head. I don't know if it was a funny story, but I guess I'll tell you a funny story. We had a phone call from an Irish lady. She was a mature student, and she wanted to make an appointment with one of our peer tutors. And I've been spending a lot of time trying to encourage people who are coming from other countries outside of Europe to work in the Writing Center. So half of the staff right now are from Asia and Africa. And I recommended one of the students, I think the person I recommended was Avantika, and Avantika is from Bangladesh. And Avantika her mom is in the UN. And so she has been all around the world. She's been educated in England, et cetera. But this person said, well, I'd rather go to somebody who I can understand. I can never understand and listen, those people, right? Oh. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm hearing this, right? And it's just like, I was like, okay, forget it. I just said to her, I said, I promise you that these people probably speak better English than you. Anyway, I don't know who she ended up going to see. But what I've done is now asked each of the tutors to actually, we have their photograph up on our website, and I'm asking them to create a welcome to the Writing Center, and I hope you come talk to me, about your papers, and just so people can hear them speak, because a couple of them probably speak better English than I do. So I thought that was pretty funny anyway.
Okay, I think also that's something, a new role for the Writing Center has been, diminishing prejudices against people, maybe, right? After
And also diversifying.
people,
Diversifying.
diversifying,
Yeah,
inclusion, that's also something very important and valuable.
the
Yeah.
big question is who's English? Who's English?
Yes.
I'm an American. It's my job is my birthright as an American to screw up English as much as possible. I think I've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for sharing that experience. It was very important to share that, I think. And Hande Hocam, would you like to answer the last question?
Yeah.
You have moved to another institution, I know. Would you like to take your experience with you as an expansion, maybe? I don't know.
The problem here is I think we cannot collaborate with other writing centers. For example, Lawrence said that they're working in that region with other universities. So we can, why not? I mean, design some courses, academic writing, summer camps, maybe those kinds of seminars, workshops, webinars, and online courses. I mean, we can come together and I don't know, create an online platform so that we can reach more people. But we couldn't do that so far. Even in Ankara, for example, we have a lot of writing centers in different universities, but we didn't have such a collaboration. So everybody's working by themselves and trying to struggle with similar problems.
And the workload and everything, the publishing pressure, I think those are also some factors. But the idea has emerged now. I think maybe in the future we can realize it.
The problem is most of the tutors in other institutions are already working, I mean, as a voluntary basis, they're not paid. So if you ask them to do more job and don't provide any payment, I mean, this can only be done through projects, and this might be a good idea. I mean, okay, I will think about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So one funny thing was you had to have curtains so that academicians, I think
that was really funny.
remember something.
There was a professor, for example, from the Faculty of Medicine. She was coming every week. She was writing a book, and she was coming writing very in hidden costumes, kind of.
Oh, really?
Hiding herself. It was really funny, and we were sometimes tutoring her in another room so that other people won't see her. I mean, she was funny, but she really loved our sessions, so she was there always. So she completed her book at the end.
Oh, that's really good. Okay, thank you very much for sharing that. Right, so thank you for your valuable contributions, and I think it was very informative, very valuable to hear all of these experiences from you. Thank you so much to all our panelists, Lawrence, Julian, Hande, and Francisca. And now I would, we are a little over our time, but from the audience, do you have any questions for our panelists? Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for joining us today. Any questions from the audience? Do you have any questions, Sona? Right.
Yeah, maybe my question would be related again with ChatGPT. So what our panelists think about the future of writing centers? Like, I know this is too big question, but do you think it will create challenge for writing centers? I mean, the spread of these artificial intelligence tools.
Do you have a specific person for the question, or all of the panelists? I think all of them.
Anyone.
We have a quite recent process happening. We have the luck that our vice president is rather positive, so she already is affirmative that it's another tool that students need to learn and teachers need to be able to deal with. So it's maybe it's even an interesting shift for writing centers. You know, the joke that Franziska made in our little chat, that, you know, fixing the writing maybe becomes less of a topic, which is maybe nice, and it could potentially be something that increases inclusion. And I guess for us as a writing center, we're going to test it. We're going to try to do our teaching on academic writing with those tools and see what happens. Yeah, so we'll include it. Like we had to include digital teaching when the pandemic came. It's just writing always went with technological progress. I mean, with paper, with writing, with printing books, and now it's just the next thing. Maybe that's the perspective.
We had a conference in December and ChatGPT was mentioned there, and my students thought it was a writing tool. They didn't know. They said, "Oh, is there something like that? Can we use it?" I said, "No, we." They didn't really understand what it was, but they are not really aware of it very much in Turkey now. But I think it's a reality, and if there's a reality, we should accept it. And we should know how to cope with it, maybe find ways to cope with it. Okay. Yes, Lawrence, please. Thank you, Julia.
I think that we're at this point that it's our responsibility as people who, as pedagogues of writing, you know, people who are teaching writing, we need to kind of start to catalog some of the multiple dimensions of learning that goes on when somebody learns to write and learns to communicate symbolically, right? And the reason we need to do that is because we have no way of assessing the value of ChatGPT as a learning tool until we recognize what it can and can't do. And so there may be some learning that is facilitated by that software. I don't know. But the thing is that it's something that has to be monitored, and we have to ask ourselves, is it facilitating the learning? And if it isn't, are we jettisoning the value of that learning that used to happen when people wrote the old-fashioned way? And then thirdly, all kinds of ethical issues are being brought up in relation to the academic project. I mean, the whole idea behind the academy is you know, that we be good scientists and that we try to understand the nature of things, and that's a human endeavor. I don't think my dog is doing it. I'm pretty sure he isn't, right? You know, the cat isn't doing it, but humans do that. And so, like, I don't know about AI in terms of what it is, what its purpose is in terms of, you know, developing a human's understanding of the nature of reality. But that's something that has to be explored. But I think we have a big job ahead of us, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Ethical issues, and most importantly, the question, is it facilitating learning? Those are very important questions to ask. Thank you for your contribution. Yeah, interesting question, Sona. Any other questions from our audience? Let me see. Nihan Hocam.
Good evening.
Hi, thank you for joining us this evening.
My professors, I'm from Turkey. I'm an assistant professor at a state university in Turkey. Actually, Professor Hajar Hande Uysal was my supervisor. And so nice to see you all. And actually, I'm so new at this topic. I was attempting to establish an academic writing center at my university, but after I have seen how difficult Hande Hoca, Professor Hande has gone through, I gave up the idea. Then I tried to attempt establish a business about it later. This chat GPT just has come out, and so I'm giving some academic writing and writing courses at the university, and this semester we will do online courses instead of face-to-face due to the earthquake happened in Turkey. And so I would ask the same question: what kind of exams I can give my students? I really don't know. You know, this chat GPT has made all this academic work so difficult. You know, when they use the turn it in, we can't understand they write it, or this is it artificial intelligence. Do you have any suggestions? I'm just wondering about it. Thank you.
That's a question which is on everybody's mind, pretty much, I think. Lawrence, do you have an answer?
Just
Possibly?
that I listened to a recording. It was an interview with the director of the Writing Center at Harvard University. And one of the things that she said was that these AI softwares are not able to tell you what you think. And so one of the ways that you can assess learning that would, would require that the student actually weigh in is if you ask them to reflective papers where they respond to their responses to readings, their responses to lectures, things like that. But possibly also maybe essays that require that they take a position on contested issues. In other words, these are unresolvable issues. They'll never be resolved. It's just, like there's always going to be some opinion on one side or the other. And usually it's who makes the best argument. The example I always use is, I fall back on is there a God, right? This idea, is there a God? And we've been arguing about this for, I don't know how long, because I wasn't there at the beginning, but we're still arguing about it, right? There's still those questions that people cannot see, they only can have an opinion about what they think, but they can't actually say that there is, something factual. So those kinds of papers might be ways that you can get around their use of the AI softwares, just give them something that requires that they reflect on something so that they're talking about their experience of it. I don't think that Chat GPT is going to be able to do that for them. This is what you say to Chat. You say, tell me what I think about that. I was like, it sounds absurd.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Yeah, I think in the future, as time goes by, we are going to also get more experience about ChatGPT, and we are also going to learn how to cope with it. And unique thought, unique reflections, maybe a solution. Yeah. Nihan Hocam, you were not affected by the earthquake in Sparta, right? Very much.
We are safe. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, good to hear that. Right. I think Julian has written a response to that question. So far, choosing very specific questions should work. Students might use AI to get a general overview or a draft, but they will still need to think and work to really define a research question and argue for a position. Thank you for your contribution, Julian. I don't know if you are ready to close the discussion. If we don't have any more questions, I would like to thank everybody for their participation and their time this evening that they allotted to us. Thank you so much for joining. The discussion was very, I think, deep and valuable discussion. We have a recording of our talk. I don't know if the panelists also agree to share it. We would like to try and put it on our website. We are still working on our website and trying to improve it, and that might be available there. Thank you, Lawrence, Julian, Hande, and Francisca. for your valuable contributions. And Julian, also, I saw that we also have a participant. Your cat was there a moment ago, right? So because we are going over our time, our cats
Exactly.
also missed us right now. Okay, thank you all very much. And I would like to close the session, but Sona, would you like to also say something before we close?
Thank you so much. It's 9 p.m. in Armenia. I have to go to sleep.
Oh, okay, you go to sleep early. It's
Yes.
8 in Turkey right now. Right, thank you for the organization, for organizing the panelists and contacting people.
Thank you all for
your
joining,
efforts.
and see you
Okay.
in our future events.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was very much
Thank
fun.
you for accepting our invitation.
Have a good evening, everybody. Be safe.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.